Hello, everybody, and we have some news for you right here. Breaking news. Ta-Nehisi Coates' revolutionary Black Panther run comes to an end in April, and this is directly from the Marvel press release. And then it says, April's Black Panther number 25 will mark the end of Ta-Nehisi Coates' redefining work on Black Panther, featuring art by Daniel Acuna and an epilogue drawn by Brian Stelfreeze, which is cool because he's one of the guys who has worked on Black Panther with Ta-Nehisi. The previously announced issue will bring fans the triumphant end to the acclaimed intergalactic empire of Wakanda storyline. Since taking over the title in 2016, the National Book Award winner and New York Times best-selling author has transformed the Black Panther mythos. Now, 5 years later, he departs, leaving the world of Wakanda forever changed and laying the groundwork for the next bold era of this iconic Marvel hero. And this book has been delayed out the wazoo. You end up where it comes out in 2018. It's now going to end pretty much 3 years later. 1 month less than 3 full years, only having 25 issues. That's 11 months of delays. Now, the shutdown, the COVID thing, did kind of throw some more into that as well, but this book has been just ripped apart by delays. And when I first started reading Marvel stuff fully, when we started our whole thing with the Marvel Comics podcast, when Fresh Start happened in 2018, this was one of the books that I was looking forward to. I had really enjoyed the movie, so coming in, hadn't had a lot of background with Black Panther, did read some of Ta-Nehisi Coates' recent stuff right before that, his run that started in 2016. So I was, on board with it a bit. I thought that his writing was a little dry for me personally, but going into it, and I think a lot of people with that start, a new number one, a fresh start, all that, and having just come off of a really popular movie, you end up getting thrown off because we're in space. We're in space where Ta-Nehisi Coates is playing around with the idea of slavery, but also this, kind of deal with, okay, here's all these characters, but they're different. We're in space. We don't know. And I fell off the book. I ended up reading the first arc, the first 5 issues, and then I had had enough. I ended up, bailing on it. Now, just as a personal deal while we're doing the podcast, we're doing this, and Immortal Hulk was a book that it took me a bit to get into at first. But when we stopped talking about that for like 2 months, people were emailing me, oh my God, why'd you drop Immortal Hulk? It's so great. You got to talk Immortal Hulk. So I went back. Okay, you're right. Let's talk about Immortal Hulk. Not one person ever mentioned Black Panther to us. Like, oh man, you're not talking Black Panther. No, not one person. And I think that the delays really hurt it. But also, it just was a story that just meandered for a real long time. It ended up trying to be a little too clever for its own sake, and things where you could have just had a Black Panther book come out. And Ta-Nehisi Coates can write a good issue. He has, and write something where a bunch of people can get on board, then start pushing this stuff that you want to push. And so this isn't, just me hating. I see all these videos on YouTube where it seems like if you want to be real popular on YouTube, you have to start throwing things and scream and curse and really be hateful. I'm not down with that, unfortunately. Maybe that'll bite me in the butt by the end, but it just wasn't for me. And I kept trying to get back on board. I tried to talk to people. Hey, is it picked up? It's kind of what's happening with Ta-Nehisi Coates' Captain America as well. One of my favorite Marvel characters, I just can't get into his run, but this continues throughout his run. Coates has taken the Black Panther to hell and back and expanded Wakanda and the distant stars. In this final issue, he'll bring T'Challa full circle back to the home he left behind and the crown he has never fully accepted. And again, I can't wait 3 years for that. I can't wait 3 years to get, for me personally, a Black Panther that I can recognize a bit and maybe learn something about. The journey will conclude, but the legend remains. Check out extraordinary variant covers by Brian Stelfreeze and renowned illustrator Sam Spratt. And don't miss the close of a historic epoch in comic history when Black Panther number 25 arrives in April. So, yeah, it's going to end. You get 25 issues. That's still a decent amount in what will then be, a trade and stuff later, a bunch of trades that people say, hey, remember that Black Panther when he was in space? And maybe it'll be one of those where people will be into it when there's not as many delays and things like that. Again, is it going to be better to read and trade is one of the big things. And when books are delayed like that, they usually are. So I'd like to hear if anybody listening has, read the whole thing and waited and went through all these delays and things like that. Is this a story that you really enjoyed? And maybe it's a story that I should go back and read then, and maybe even do a video or a podcast on it. I'd like to know. I'd like to know how many people actually are still reading it and still enjoying it. But let me know in the comments below if you like this. Subscribe, like it. Look at our notes for different things like a Marvel podcast, a Marvel website, also some DC stuff as well. Website, podcast, and the Patreon where you can help us supporting all this and getting a ton more. But thanks, everybody. And I will talk to you later.